Alright. Woo! Alright. Ayin Thropos here with another edition of You Don't Know, huh? You Don't Know! Alright, we're here on part 2 of Alien Evidence and/or the Alien Narrative. Sit back, enjoy the ride. Evidence of aliens or the alien narrative, and the UFO influence, including the Nazca lines, mummified alien bodies, Paracas People, etc., etc. There's been a lot of controversy over the years concerning the alien enigma and the idea of disclosure. The idea that the government's going to come along and blow the lid off all the secrets, and we're all going to walk into a new era of, Wonderland. All-knowing. Let me tell you, that's a bunch of fucking bullshit. After years of investigating the alien, so-called alien cover-up, and realizing that if this cover-up was the shoddiest, most amateurish, just buffooneristic cover-up ever, I realized that in fact there is no alien cover-up. None at all. As you see, it's just, in fact, it's just the opposite. It is a move to get every man, woman, and child in the United States of America indoctrinated into the idea that aliens are real and aliens exist, and up in the sky there's a bunch of green men floating around in UFOs and stuff like that. And I'm not saying there's not, but somebody wants us to think that, and that's the first thing you need to know. One of the main topics that we have here that we discuss and explore on my show is the Paracas People. And these are the elongated skulls, the big-headed motherfuckers, huh? Like the cone heads, Gilbert Radner, Jane Curtin, all that stuff. Dan Aykroyd, on Saturday Night Live. Ha ha ha, it's all a big fucking joke, huh? Well, what if that shit was real, right? What if? Okay. So down there in Peru, they've got what's called the Paracas People. And these are skulls that are very large, very much larger than your skull. And right there in the museum that I went to, when I took my documentary film to Team 2, they have, displays up on the wall explaining, how they cradle board these children to form their heads when they're still very pliable to make them elongated. And people still do this all over the world today, in Africa and stuff like this. And so when people are confronted with the reality of the elongated skulls, the so-called Homo capensis, not that there's anything wrong with that, then they say, aha, it's this cradle boarding. These primitive people, they put bandanas around their children's head and put them on a board, stuff like that, and make their head grow like that. Well, that's true, they do that. But the reason that these primitive peoples do this is to emulate their rulers from ages and age in the past. You see, they're trying to make their children look like the royalty of the past. And the reason they look like that is because these people are not human. The Paracas People is not a human being. And I have been 3 inches away, myself personally, from skull number 176, which is the most photographed elongated skull in history. And it says 176 right up there on the side of his head, written with a magic marker. And I'm sure some archaeologists did that about 70 or so years ago. It also says Chongo, written on front of his head right there, Chongo. Chongo's the Spanish word for monkey. So I can only, assume that this is some derogatory term they use to, belittle these people. Now, when you go down to this area of Paracas, it's right next door to the Nazca lines. And of course, we went and visited the Nazca lines too. And the Nazca lines are world famous. Eric von Daniken, Zechariah Sitchin, a lot of people talking about these Nazca lines. They were just discovered in the last century from somebody flying over there with an airplane. You can't see them hardly at all from the ground because they're so large. These pictograms are pictographs. Well, they know that the Nazca people inhabited this area, so naturally they called it the Nazca lines. Well, that's actually a misnomer, because they should be called the Paracas lines, because it's the Paracas people with the elongated skulls that I believe made the so-called Nazca lines. I don't have anything to back that up, but what we know is that all of these peoples with the elongated skulls are found all throughout the world. And Maria Wheatley, the beautiful and amazingly intelligent and talented researcher from the UK, has done a lot of work on the sacred sites there. Stonehenge in particular. And what she has discovered is that there's a cache of bodies, mass graves of the elongated skulls, the Homo capensis, Paracas people, whatever the fuck you want to call them, huh? And so what we've learned is, or what's now evident, these types of people were hunted to extinction by regular people. In other words, humanity saw them as a threat, and they hunted them down and killed them wherever they found them. Men, women, and children, just eradicated them, dead, extinct, or so you'd think. You know, we may be in for a bit of a surprise on that one if Dr. Edward Spencer or Karen Hoodis has anything to say about that. And that's some explosive information. I'm not saying I endorse that, and I'll get to that here in a second. Anyway, so we now know that the Nazca lines were created by the Paracas people. Now, the first thing when you start talking about these elongated skulls, which have been around for decades, you know, most all of y'all already know about this. UFOs, right? They had flying saucers and all this stuff. I have not seen any evidence to support that. I mean, they had woven baskets and stuff like this. There may have been some high technology that they had, but it wasn't comparable to the technology that we have today. I'm not saying it wasn't higher than the technology that we had today. It just wasn't like with computers and stuff like this. They may have been on some, you know, spiritual trip or something like this. I don't know. But I don't think that they had UFOs or any aerial craft whatsoever. I don't know. You don't know, huh? You don't fucking know, so don't act like you do! What's up? Alright. So anyway, when you're investigating the reality of the Paracas people and the elongated skulls, it's best to know kind of who the cast of characters is, the people who are exploring this idea in the modern times. And I think it's also important to kind of put them into categories, and this is just how I like to do it: Christian and non-Christian. You know, and I'm not a Christian, right? Y'all all know that, but I was raised in a Christian home, and I am pro-Christian, right? So, but I'm just not a Christian. But the reason I think that it's important to bring this up is because of the narrative and the conclusions that the different people and researchers come up with. In other words, the people who are, you know, fundamental Christians, they are saying that these Paracas people are the Nephilim, you know, from the Bible, the giant, the mighty men of renown and stuff like this. And I don't really think they are. I've just now surreptitiously brought in a subject, which is the giants, okay? And that's one reason I want to bring that up is because we're going to stay away from that subject today because it can cloud the issue. You see, the Paracas people are very tall, extremely tall. They can be 8.5, maybe 9 feet tall, but technically in my book, they're not giants. Because giants were known all over the world, North America, Columbus, Ohio, everywhere, you know, the Grand Canyon, all throughout the United States, full of giants at one time. Just ask any, you know, consult any American Indian legend. They all have their stories of how they hunted the giants down and killed them. They, you know, there's 500 different Indian tribes that are all separate and stuff and don't even know about each other. How the hell did they come up with the same story, you know? It just don't make sense. Same thing with the Bigfoot, right? They've all got stories about Bigfoot. Why? Because all this shit is fucking real. Bigfoot is real. Giants in the old days is real. And these elongated head motherfuckers, the big headed motherfuckers, they're real. They were real 2,000 years ago. Are they real today? Are they alive today? I don't know. Like I said, Dr. Edward Spencer and Karen Hoodis might have something to say about that. Anyway, getting back to these researchers, the cast of characters, the #1 researcher of the Paracas skulls in the world is Brian Forrester. You read his name, it looks like it says Brian, but it's pronounced Brian. And he's a brilliant man who's written a number of books, and he lives in Paracas with his wife. And he's boots on the ground, and he's been doing very serious research for a long time. And he's also co-written a book called The Enigma of Skull Deformation or something like this with David Hatcher Childress. Of course, David Hatcher Childress is a world-renowned author in these subjects. Okay, so these guys kind of represent the secular area of these researchers. Which the other researchers, which are the Christians, I don't want to say too much about them or give them too much press. They get enough press on their own. You know, that's Steve Wolf, L.A. Marzulli, and I'll think of that other guy's name here it is, Timothy Alberino, right? And they go to, you know, they got these fancy helicopter trips you can take down there and go explore this stuff with them and stuff like that and stay in a 5-star hotel and it costs a bunch of damn money. or you can even buy these handmade statues that they have of giants and stuff like that. I'm not saying none of that stuff's fun and everything. You know, I can't afford to do that. I go down there, but I can't, you know, be staying in a 5-star hotel or nothing like that, huh? Ah, fuck a 5-star hotel, huh? Yeah! Stay in a goddamn tent. Stay in a motherfucking wood hollow with a fucking Bigfoot or some shit, huh? Fuck that! Anyway, you get the picture. So this L.A. Marzulli, Steve Wolf, and Timothy Alberino, these are the Bible-thumping guys whose narrative it is to say, oh, you know, we're coming towards Armageddon, you know, the Antichrist, and this is all playing in with it. These Paracas people are the demons or devils or, you know, something like that. You know, so they you know, Steve Wolf in particular, excellent researcher, excellent observations, a lot of great conclusions, but where he loses me is where he starts putting the Bible stuff in it. You know, I mean, that Jesus is going to come and we're all going to be happy, you know, because that just ain't what it's going to be, you know, in my opinion. You know, maybe I'm wrong about that. So anyway, the Paracas, when we were up there with my team, I was up there with Danny Hake and Serious Alchemy, and we've got footage that we're showing all throughout here of our trip through there. These dangerous mountain roads, you know. One time I was driving, we decided to go up this damn, you know, trail on a mountain. I'm talking about, we were literally, like, you know, if you would have just gone off a couple of feet off, you would have been like a mile, fallen a mile to your death. I mean, these mountains in Peru are so majestic. It's the Andes mountain range. It's one of the tallest ranges in the world, probably the second tallest next to the Himalayas.
And action.
Okay, so we just came down the road. It was a little bit nerve-wracking. The boys weren't scared, huh? I might have been the only one that was a little bit edgy about that. And I was driving, I had our lives in my hands. Confidence was high. I see these cactuses, you see these trees, 120-foot tall trees. Beautiful land. We were way the hell up that mountain just a minute ago. We were way the hell up there, huh? Muy peligro, muy peligro. We made it back down to the road. Now we're fixing to just start hauling ass back down to the road. We get down to Paracas. Back to the Elongated Skulls. The Grande Cabezas. Find out what's going on with those big-headed motherfuckers, huh? We're gonna find out, that's it. Yeah, we're gonna find out what's going on with those big-headed motherfuckers. We got our Suzuki right there, 4-wheel drive, all-wheel drive all the time. Got this, huh? Got this. That's it. That's it! One interesting side note is when I did the Ayahuasca ritual with a true shaman down in the Amazon jungle in Puerto Maldonado, which is right at it's right on the river that they call the Mother of God, I think is the name of that river, the Madre de Dios. And I did the Ayahuasca ritual. I'll give you more details on that at a later time, okay? It was a mind-bending, it was a mind fuck, okay? So it was something else. But what was interesting about this shaman is he was blaming the Germans for for what he called the exploitations. The Germans did this, the Germans did that. And of course he didn't speak English, but it just so happens there was another American there in the ceremony, and he assigned this man who spoke Spanish, and they assigned this man to be my interpreter, okay? And so he was telling us this, you know, the Germans did this, the Germans did that. And I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck is he talking about, man? When I went to school, they were talking about the Spanish did this and that, you know. So, but once you get into the occult, as far as I am an initiate in an order. Let's just put it like that, a secret society. And so I've had a lifetime of experience in the occult, and I go around doing rituals. We're saving that for another story. You may have heard my story on that, the blood sacrifice rituals in Mexico. You can check those out on with Miles Johnson on the Basis Project. I think that's Basis number 67. Or you can also check that out with Rex Bear on the Leap Project. You know, just type in Ayin Thropos, you know, blood sacrifice rituals or something like that. It should come right up. Hear those hair-raising, you know, terrible stories. But anyway, getting back to the conquest, he's blaming it all on the Germans, and I'm trying to figure out, you know, why is he blaming all this on the Germans? Huh? I mean, what the fuck? But knowing what I know, like I said, having been in the cult my entire life, it is one big system. You know, at that time, the Germany working in collusion with, Switzerland and France and, even England, even these countries that appeared to be enemies, they were colluding at the top. And you see, the domination of the Catholic Church in South America is very profound. We all know that Francisco Pizarro, with his band of about 100 men, and only about 24 well-armed, soldiers and horses and shit like that, literally conquered an army of 250,000 men. As insane as that sounds, but they used tactics. They used shock and awe, right? So surprise tactics. They also used something that the people down there didn't know about. It's called deception. Those people didn't know what lying was, man. Back in the day, everybody told the truth, So Pizarro came down there with his Bible, his monk, that came with him, and they got down, Ayahuasca. He saw that Bible and he threw it on the ground, that priest just went up and attack, and they're all hiding back there with horses, and they just came out there, riding out there, and they just started killing everybody. And it was just a bloodbath. But Ayahuasca was surrounded by so much of his entourage, all these people in their, gay costumes and shit like this, and scribes and priests and stuff like that weren't fighting men, that within less than a couple of minutes, there was literally piles of bodies that were like as tall as a man. And the true warriors and stuff that were backing up Ayahuasca were so disoriented and didn't know what to do. And of course, Ayahuasca was taken prisoner. And so the Spanish just continued to lance people. They were up to their ankles in blood, is what it was. There's no telling. Each man must have killed at least 1,000 people. I mean, it's indescribable what happened on that day. So anyway, enter the Catholic Church. And the only reason I bring up the Catholic Church is throughout the countryside of Peru, and all throughout Peru, the people are predominantly Catholic. And the Catholics have these symbols, the same symbols of what I have, or what the people that I come from, is what I call the Pharonic Dominators. Because whether you realize it or not, Judaism, Catholicism, Islam, these are all reflections or watered down versions of Egyptian mystery religions. And so we have all of the same symbols, the obelisk, the eye, the pyramid, the Masonic type looking stuff, the laurel wreath, the sheaths of wheat, the fascia. If you go to the United States Senate floor and look, you see there's these two huge, columns on each side with things that look like what it is. It's called a fascia. It's a bunch of reeds that's bundled together, and it has an axe head in it. It's like an old kind of like Roman type of weapon. So you see the world, people a lot think that the United States is like the new Rome. Well, it is, because Rome never went away, and here we are. Well, guess what? It goes back even further than that, because it goes back to Egypt. You see, all of these things are reflections of Egypt. And even further back than that, we get back to the Babylonian and the Sumerian. It's one continual system that's been going on all along. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because we must ask ourselves, well, how do these Paracas people fit into this shit? How do these big-headed motherfuckers, how do they fit into this shit? Well, I'm going to fucking find out, that's it! All right. When we're talking about UFO evidence, one thing that needs to be brought up, another investigation I did last year in 2016, after we went to Peru, I got back, I took my new documentary film team. We had two members that were down there, Jose Luis and the young lady, I can't remember her name. They were college professors. And then I was with my man Rick Hill, and we flew down there and we studied many things, not the least of which was what I call the Reptilian Museum. And this is the Museo de Antropología in Veracruz, in Jalapa, Mexico, which is in the state of Veracruz. And of course we have some images which we're showing you on the screen right now, these are the Toltec Heads. Each head was as big as a building, literally. And what's interesting about these heads is they show individual people. These are not stylized depictions of what some person might have looked like. You can tell by looking at them that these were real people. Another interesting thing about it, and of course they make a big deal about this on Ancient Aliens, and everyone's noticed the same thing. All these guys are wearing helmets. They look like kind of like football helmets or something. Well, of course, all your, everyone who's on a certain narrative with the UFO, you know, disclosure stuff and everything like that, they're going to say, well, it's a space helmet. Well, I don't know if it's a space helmet. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's not a space helmet. I don't know what kind of helmet it is. But these statues are very unique all throughout the world, based on all the things I just told you, plus some other stuff, and that is every one of these heads depicts a Negro type of person. In other words, an African type of features. In other words, they're black people. Okay, well the story that we're given is that the black people did not come to Mexico or the Caribbean until they were brought there as slaves, and they began to propagate and stuff like this. So, you know, obviously there's some problems with that story, because you've got these statues depicting black people that are thousands of years old, or at least 1,000 years old. They were discovered by oil companies who went to exploit the land, just much like the Germans, right, or the Spanish, and they were doing all their drilling and their seismographic stuff, and they kept hitting these big rocks, and they didn't know what they are, and they dug one of them up, and it was a big head. Well, they went around, you know, dynamiting them and stuff like that, you know, but they didn't get too far before somebody shut them down. A lot of them started being dug out and stuff. So at this museum is, if it's not the only museum in the world that has these Toltec heads, it is the one that has the best collection of them, because it's right there in Jalapa, which is right there where all this shit went down. And Jalapa is a bad motherfucking town, man. I mean, it's serene, it's quiet, it's nice, it's a nice tourist destination. You know, all the tourist stuff is great. You know, the women are okay. The cocaine is fucking kick-ass. And let me tell you, we had a big time over there. Well, upon entering and go into the Museo de Antropologia, that was not on our itinerary, okay? But I saw that the museum was there, and we decided to go in there. And upon entering, you know, to see the Toltec heads, but upon entering this museum, I instantly realized, or pretty soon, not after that, realized that this museum is what Stuart Swerdlow calls the Reptilian Museum. Because this is the most bizarre museum you've ever seen in your life. It's got statuary of human beings turning into reptiles, like a reptilian shapeshifter. It's got statues of little elves and little gnomes and fairy creatures and stuff like that, and they got a little smile on their face, and they're, you know, and they got this one that looks like he got a big old backpack. He's carrying an old backpack around, you know. And then you find out, you read the inscription there, he's really carrying, what he's doing, he's carrying a bunch of ceremonial skins, human skins, you know, people that have been skinned and flayed alive, you know, he's carrying their skins on their back. So they're all going around, you know, like munchkins with a smile on their face and everything like that. But, you know, they got some dastardly deeds, man, those little motherfuckers. Anyways, they've also got a statue, I think we'll show a picture of it here. It looks that they think that the statue is halfway finished, because it's like the thing is size the shape of a head. And you can see a half of a face on it, and they think that was, you know, unfinished. Well, what they learned later is that the statue is finished. It was meant to be like that, because what that statue represents is the duality of mankind, how man somehow has half of him in the material, physical world, and then the other half of him is in a dream world, or something like this. But the most stark and startling statuary that they have there is these reptilian shapeshifters that are, you know, turning in basically from human into different animals, but specifically walking lizard men. Okay, it's quite alarming. So the question is, are reptilian shapeshifters real? I don't know, but reptilian shapeshifting museums are real. I can tell you that because I was there. Y'all fucking stay tuned, huh? That's it!